Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay. Whoops. Interesting. Guest speakers who can't tolerate noise, MCs who can't recognize faces. You're all going to leave this conference with mental health issues. I'll tell you that right now. Richard Ward. Richard Ward is living off the grid on 24-acre slice of heaven in Bisbee, Arizona. Richard has managed to merge his two loves, art and sustainable living. Over the years, his homestead has become not just a personal sanctuary, but a classroom. Richard has had the pleasure of guiding over 350 students through his unique residency program. That was all at once. No, I'm just kidding. He seemed they ate all your food and everything when they went through there. 350 students through his unique residency program, all in the hopes of spreading the word about sustainable living and the sheer joy of building something with your own hands. His commitment to affordable housing and empowering others through hard work and determination is what gets him going. Please welcome Richard Ward.
Hello, everybody, and I'm Richard, and I run the TerraForm Together Homestead. Like Bill said, we are an educational homestead, basically spreading the word of affordable housing, teaching people to live off-grid, build their own home, and fulfill my passion, which is sustainable living. So a little bit about me. I have been in the alternative building world for about 11 years now. Whenever I was 23, I was introduced to the tiny house movement. It was a Facebook post, clickbait article that said couple builds home for $23,000. And it just, for some reason, stuck in my brain and I got hooked. When I was 25, I began building TerraForm 1, this home here. With no building experience and no idea what I was doing. My family had an intervention for me to explaining why I should not sink my life savings into building my own home on a trailer. After that, I grew up in Dallas-Fort Worth and I knew I didn't want to live there. So I left on a 2-month road trip that turned into 3.5 years and traveled the country trying to find a place to call home. The last 1.5 years of that, I did work trade programs, just getting experience in any way, shape, form I could on homesteading, off-grid living, things along those lines. And then in 2020, found Bisbee, Arizona, and absolutely fell in love with it. Bought a 24-acre lot about 20 minutes north of town, and there was not a road to get there whenever I purchased it. So we started with as much bare land as you can possibly imagine. In that, 6 months into having our homestead, we started doing work trade programs to kind of basically because I needed help on the land and just started seeing transformations in people, people getting an opportunity to live off grid, live close to nature, build something for the first time in their lives, use their hands to actually make something instead of sitting behind a computer or just living in a town, living in a city, and just saw so many people's lives transform just by giving the opportunity to be like, yeah, hey, you can use a saw. You can do this. So in 2022, I started TerraForm Together, which is a nonprofit teaching natural building and sustainable living. So today, I want to talk to you guys about fast tracking your homestead and building community with work trade programs. Work trade programs, Wolf and Workaway are the two biggest ones. Those are both the ones we use. Basically, a work trade program is a non-monetary employment situation where hosts will provide food, housing, education in exchange for help on their property. Wolf is mostly around agricultural sort of works, but homesteading, natural building, things like that kind of fall in their guidelines. Workaway can be anything from building projects to language exchanges to, childcare help, animal farm help, things like that. It's basically a platform where you go in, create a profile as a host, and then people create profiles looking for hosts in the area. They message you and, make an arrangement sort of thing. Typically, work trade programs, what I have found of our 350 some odd people that have come through, It's typically people in their late teens to early 30s. That's not always the case. We have definitely hosted people in their 50s and 60s that are in that kind of retired age that are traveling and looking for new experiences. But for some reason, I've learned people between 35 and 60 don't exist in this world. Everybody, it's all young people that are traveling or people that are retired. People typically are on like a gap year self-exploration. They're looking to learn, they're looking to experience something different. And they're typically trying to gain work experience in fields that they think are interesting. We get a lot of people that are looking to build their own homesteads, looking to just work with tools, artists, things like that, that are looking for a place to kind of pursue their passions. So we'll kind of go through the benefits of the work trade program, some of the downfalls of work trade programs. As you can probably imagine, after hosting 350 teenagers, early 20-year-olds, there are some things that you should be aware of, and kind of give you guys a opportunity to kind of learn about these programs and get off on a good foot if this is something that is interesting to you. So kind of some of the benefits of the work trade programs that I have found, the biggest one by far is increased motivation to accomplish your homesteading goals. So I know me personally, and if I'm not accountable to somebody, I will get nothing done ever. And so having somebody on your property that you are housing, you are feeding, that is wanting to learn from you, for me, is a big motivation to get out there and actually do the project and get it done. I attribute pretty much everything that we have built on our property to the homesteading or to the work trade programs, because when I'm hosting 6 or 7 people, they're like, what are we doing today? And just sitting there idly, I'm like, okay, I got to get this done. So it's definitely something that will keep you motivated, keep you pushing, because homesteading is hard. Building a place from nothing is really hard. So having just those people there to kind of be like, okay, what are we working on today is really, really helpful. If you've never built anything before and you've tried to build it yourself and then got a little bit of a helping hand, a lot of y'all will know, 2 people working on a project does not double your productivity. It increases it times 4, 10 exponentially, even if neither of you know what you're doing. Just having somebody to bounce an idea off of and be like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, and they'd be like, that sounds really dumb, is very helpful. And also just working just the physicality of it, having somebody be like, hey, can you hold this? Hey, can you grab this? Hey, I need this tool. Like, not having to break your mental train of thought to go get a tool and get back to work increases your productivity exponentially, even if it is typically unskilled labor. Through the work trade programs, you really build a sense of camaraderie. We have had some amazing, amazing groups through, especially through the COVID years, whenever our property became like a dream place because we're butted up to BLM land. No one's around us. Everybody wanted to kind of get out of the cities and things like that. And we just had really good groups of people. I've hosted, typically we'll find like 3 to 6 people are really good, but we've hosted groups up to 15 people. And it's just like we became our own little small town through COVID, which was kind of cool. There's a lot of opportunities for cultural exchange and learning through work trade programs. So not only are you educating the people that are coming to your place, but those people are also often coming with different life experiences. We've had a lot of yoga teachers, a lot of spiritual people that have taught me things that I would have not known normally. We had a venomous snake expert that came and stayed with us for a couple of weeks and caught a Mojave rattlesnake and brought it to the property to show everybody. That was an interesting experience, but he was really cool and like talked to our whole group about, snake safety, that they're not out to get you, like this is a good way to treat them. And it was one that he was picked up off the highway that was going to get run over. So you never know what you're going to get. There's definitely a lot of opportunity to kind of get different life experiences from people all over the country and all over the world. We've hosted people from France, from Germany, Canada, and really all over the United States. And I think one of the things that most people look to work trade for is it's an opportunity to exchange your time and energy for labor instead of money. So I know a lot of people starting their homesteads are doing it for financial independence, and hiring a contractor, if you can find a contractor around here, is very expensive and not the most reliable thing in the world. So for me, building a homestead on a budget, I would rather spend my time and energy teaching people, providing, food, providing community, providing information, providing fun for people, instead of working a 9-to-5 job to make the money to then hire a contractor that really won't show up anyways, in my experience. With that, there are some downsides to work trade programs that I have learned over the last 4 years of hosting people that I was not, super aware of going into it. And yeah, just wanted to kind of run through some of those. The average participant in work trade programs is typically young, unskilled. It's not people that you're not getting the electrician and you're not getting the carpenter out there typically. We've had a few people that have been great, professional contractors and stuff that were retired and done really great work on our property, and they just enjoyed being out in nature and that. But most people are coming in that you're going to have to teach. I find work trade programs work really well for things like earth bag work, landscaping work, things that are fairly simple but require a lot of labor. We do a lot of earth bag work, and it's all through volunteers and things like that. Our earth bag days, when we are doing bag days, are actually a lot of fun because everybody's moving out in the sunshine, blasting music, that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't count on work trade to do your plumbing, to do your electrical, to do the really critical things. You have to be the authority figure on your property. For a lot of people, I kind of have learned to be the boss and learn to take that kind of CEO managerial role on the property. It can be very exhausting, especially whenever, I have to get up to do my work early in the morning, and I have a bunch of 20-year-olds blaring music and making a fire and drinking and stuff like that till 2 a.m. So that is something that I have had to learn to adjust to, is recognizing that you are likely in a different state than the people that are coming through your property. With that, if you host the wrong people or don't deal with problems quickly, life can become miserable very quickly. I highly recommend kick people out quick. We'll go through kind of the ways to do this correctly, but we've had some mostly really, really wonderful groups, but probably out of that 350, 10 or 12 that have just been nightmares. You do have increased liability. We'll talk about waivers and things like that later on. There are ways to mitigate that, but just knowing that, you're having young people typically using power tools and things like that. All the people that we've had on the property, we've never had any serious injuries, but it's just something you want to cover yourself, insurance, things along those lines. And I found it can be a little bit difficult to manage like a full-time job and work trade programs. Because a lot of the people that are doing work trade programs, they're working about 20 hours a week. They have the rest of the time to fill. And a lot of the times they'll look to you to kind of like entertain them a little bit. So just kind of recognize that by doing a work trade program, you are kind of taking on another part-time job. Work trade is not free labor. It just is an exchange of labor for your time and energy instead of money, which a lot of people doing off-grid homestead living, you may have a lot of time and energy, may not have a lot of money, and that's where these programs really kind of work out. So with that, hopefully it didn't totally scare you off of work trade programs, but wanted to kind of set the expectation sort of thing, because these are things that I've learned over the years of hosting people. And again, of the 350 people, most of them are wonderful people, and we've been able to accomplish such great things through our program. So if you're considering doing work trade programs, we'll talk about kind of establishing a successful program and then running a successful program. The most important thing I have found is be very clear on your expectations and accommodations in your profile. So it is totally okay to start a work trade program with next to nothing. When we started, we were 6 months in. We had just barely gotten a little bit of electricity. We were hauling water in like 30 gallons at a time. We didn't have internet out at our property. We only hosted self-contained units for a while, but we made it very clear that like this is what we have. We have a hole to poop in. We have a solar shower, like solar bag shower thing, and like made it very clear. And as long as your expectations are clear, that's what people want. That's what you know, people are able to decide if they want to come to you or they don't want to come to you. Consider the types of people that you want to work for you, and you know what their life circumstances are, and kind of cater to that. I'm single in my 30s, not somebody who is big into children. I don't host families. I have a lot of sharp things and power tools and things like that. I just don't want kids on the property really. I have other friends who do work trade programs that are families, and they host almost exclusively 2 families. So it's okay to kind of determine what type of people work for you. Find people that kind of you want to get along with because they'll be living on your property. I definitely recommend set expectations low and over deliver. So if you say you're going to cook every meal for somebody and they one day you're tired and don't want to do it, they're going to be disappointed. If you say, hey, we've got rice and beans in the root cellar, help yourself, and then one day you cook pizza for everybody, everybody's excited. So establishing automated tools, again, you kind of take this on as a part-time job. We use a lot, I'm all about systems and making things easier and making things, you know, as least amount of daily work on my end as possible. We use Calendly, which is a way to schedule interviews with people, WhatsApp for group communications, Google Docs. I have a Google Docs list that we update every week with like, here's the top priorities, here's some additional projects. DocuSign is great for waivers, so that way you can get people to sign things before they show up. And then occasionally we have had people actually like track their hours. Usually that comes if we start having problems with the group or anything like that. I kind of use it more as a punishment than anything. But Connect Team is a good way for people to like log in and log out if you do need to track work on people. I try and get people that I can trust them and don't have to like monitor everything they're doing. And that's most groups, but Connect Team is really helpful in those situations. I would say video interview everybody. Trust your gut. Say no when something isn't right. We say no to about 1/3 of the people that we interview. The interview is also a good kind of tool to weed people out. So I like the Calendly website because it lets, I have two-hour blocks during the week that I'll take interviews. They typically last like 15 to 20 minutes. But if you don't show up to the interview that you scheduled, you don't come out to the property. You don't get a follow-up. Like to me, that just shows irresponsibility. So it's a good way to like first weed people out. A couple things I like to ask is like, why do you like our homestead? And it doesn't matter so much what the answer to these are. It just matters that people have an answer so that they are interested and passionate about something. You know, what are your passions? What do you want to pursue while you're here? So finding people that are working on art projects, or finding people that are trying to go to school, or finding people that just have some interest outside of just, you know, laying around is really good to have. Another just general interview question I like is, when was the last time you did something for the first time? So this is something that I want to see. Are you willing to take chances? Are you willing to do something new? Are you willing to experiment and like live a life where it's not just, you know, the same thing over and over again? And then to ask people about, you know, tell me about some time you overcame something really difficult. Living off grid is really difficult, especially in the early stages. And we get a lot of people that are coming from an apartment building or things like that. So, you know, if people have never lived that situation, they're coming into a culture shock, and you want to kind of prepare people for that. Liability waivers and home insurance is a must. We do have a free waiver template. If you want to sign up for our email list, I'll be over here after presentations and stuff like that. We have both a liability waiver, homeowners insurance, and umbrella insurance. This is just in case anything goes wrong, which fortunately up to this point, we haven't had any issues. Also kind of understand the local laws and regulations about what determines tenants or residents, so that we don't end up with squatters or things like that. Technically, under the IRS laws, work trade is considered a barter program, so you are technically supposed to charge for rent, basically, and they're supposed to be paid for labor. And so basically, we have it netted out where the rent equals 20 hours a week of labor, so it equals 0, so that way we don't have to do a lot of complicated IRS paperwork. But just understanding a lot of those things will make your homestead process more successful. And then if you got through all of that, sort of the pre-stuff, interviewing people, things for running a successful work trade program, biggest thing is being clear on communications, expectations, and responsibilities. Be a hard ass when you have to. I hate being the boss sometimes, but it is my job and that's what I signed up for. And so it's a lot easier to be like, hey, clearly you haven't done what we agreed upon. I've continued to do what we agreed upon. I think it's time to go. You know, we do a 2-week trial period, a week-to-week kind of agreement with people, and just making sure people know, hey, this is what I need from you, and this is what I'll provide, and make sure you keep up on providing what you are supposed to provide. We've definitely found that one bad person can kind of cause a lot of drama in a group, and that just is not fun. Balancing workload is really important to avoid burnout for both you and the work trade people. We have a 1-month minimum. I've found that it usually takes people a couple weeks to get accustomed to a new environment, to get trained, to actually be like really, you know, good participants and actually produce. And then we've also started putting in like a 3-month maximum stay unless we have very rare situations, because I've found the only difference between a leader and a tyrant is their time in office sort of thing. So especially if you're doing bag work and things like that that are really repetitive, it's good to kind of give an end date to people, so that way you're not having people that get resentful and things like that. Consider running multiple projects to keep people interested in the work. Again, if you're doing bag work, something that is really physically intensive, really repetitive, we have way too many projects going all at any given time on our property. Part of that is my own ADD, but it keeps people interested. And we're doing bag work today, we're doing plaster tomorrow, we're doing some landscaping, and just giving people opportunities to learn a bunch of different skills. I definitely recommend taking breaks for yourself from hosting. It can be a really, really wonderful thing and get a lot of work done really quickly. It can also be really exhausting. We host October through April. I found most people don't want to come to Southern Arizona during the summer anyways, so winter is our busy season. Community feeling is really good. I found 3 to 5 participants is ideal. Less and people kind of get lonely or look to you really to like go hang out, go to town, go do that. Whereas, you know, they're looking for fun exploration where I'm like, okay, I got to get work done today. I've got a full-time job, all that. More than 5 or 6 gets to be a lot to manage. We've had up to 15 people when we were doing our earth bag home, and that was a lot. Encourage feedback and suggestions. Be like, hey, it's okay to be like, I don't really know what I'm doing. This is my first time. Like, what do you want out of this experience? What can I do to make this experience better for you? And definitely put time and effort into building community. Group meals are great, sharing hobbies. You know, I'll teach people ceramics. I'll teach people stuff that's just fun outside of the workday. Game nights, things like that. Again, just recognize that you're trading your time and energy to make a positive experience for your work trade groups in exchange for a labor, or in exchange for instead of paying for labor. So that is kind of a quick overview of the work trade programs. A couple things we have coming up on our homestead is June 8th. We're doing a first steps for homesteaders. So that'll be a detailed look at our homestead, all the things we've done right, all the things we've done wrong, and a detailed kind of Q&A of like, what do you want to learn or know before you start your homesteading journey? We have a handful of upcoming workshops in the fall, and then we also host through Hip Camp. So if you want to kind of experience a homestead, try it before you buy it sort of thing, come check us out. We're kind of 20 minutes north of Bisbee, 20 minutes south of Tombstone, and about an hour and a half from here. So Any questions? In the back. Basically nothing. So we had built a little like shack with a bamboo screen for our shower. We built a composting toilet, which our initial one was just 2 stacks of hay bales and then a little portable toilet on top. And then we did have an RV set up that we were able to put people in. But the first couple people were tent camping and things like that. So make sure people have a some sort of way to shower, a place to poop, obviously, but you need that within the first couple days of you moving out to your property. But yeah, it's really about setting expectations. Saying that we're totally raw off-grid camping experience is totally okay. And then as you kind of develop your property, we've kind of developed our camp areas in addition to like our main home and main property areas. All right. If nothing else, that's me. Thank you guys for having me.